The air burst like a fighter jet had passed by. The places hit by the golden energy cracked apart. The monsters caught in the crack were torn apart without even being able to scream. The golden light blew away 4th and 5th grade species. Breaking the sky swordsmanship. This was the road of the sword that broke the sky. Even the 3rd grade monsters, which could easily destroy the area in 10 minutes, screamed because they couldn't resist this sword. How long had Yu Jung-hyuk practiced this sword? 10 years? 20 years? If you combine the training in the dark dimension, it would be well over 100 years. Thanks to all these years, Yu Jung-hyuk was able to reach the peak of humanity. My physical limit is still low, but I can barely do it. Yu Jung-hyuk controlled his overloaded body and constantly swung his sword. The transcendent power couldn't last long, no matter how strong he was. His level was also far less than his teacher, the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint. Nevertheless, his attacks were far beyond the general skills category. The monsters exploded like firecrackers, and Reinheit was amazed. The rumors of transcendence aren't false, but how can a human who isn't a returnee... Reinheit didn't finish his words. The place where he had just been located was torn apart from the ether blades of Yu Jung-hyuk's heaven-shaking sword. It was truly a formidable destructive power. This was the power of the splitting the sky energy. Be careful. Be careful. People are getting caught up in it. Yu Sang-ah shouted at Yu Jung-hyuk, but he ignored her. In the first place, he was good at destroying things, not saving things. This is the master of a legendary great story. It isn't easy to defeat him. In paradise, his strength is equivalent to a 2nd grade monster. In fact, Reinheit's perpetual motion showed no signs of receding despite the damage. Rather, the branches were angry and absorbed more of the humans around them. Heck! The rate at which the perpetual motion grew was faster than the rate at which humans were rescued. In addition, there was still a high number of monsters. Yu Sang-ah opened her mouth as she used Hermes' walking method and Theseus' resolution to kill the surrounding beasts. It doesn't end. Where have they been hiding these monsters? The monsters are the exports of paradise. Exports? Yu Jung-hyuk looked up at the air for a short moment. The Dokjabis who said they wouldn't interfere were gathering, as if it was a fun sight. This is difficult. It looks like a new farm is needed. Yu Sang-ah didn't immediately understand what they meant. In the midst of the surging beasts, she could see monsters that were familiar from previous scenarios. 9th grade ground rats, 8th grade grolls. The monsters used in the scenario. Have you ever wondered where they came from? Yu Jung-hyuk asked them. They came from another world. There is a limit using that method. The Dokjabis are busy and don't have time for inefficient work. Yu Sang-ah stared blankly at Yu Jung-hyuk, the Dokjabis, and the monsters of paradise. She was frozen, and it was Jung Hee-won, using Hellflame's ignition by her side, who reacted first. Saying this now, Yu Jung-hyuk nodded. Paradise is the source of the monsters of the star stream. To be precise, it is one of them. In Jung Hee-won's mind, some things that hadn't been understood finally fit together. The 2nd floor of the Dark Castle. The reasons why the Dokjabis, who were involved in everything, didn't interfere for the first time. If she thought about it, there was a reason for everything. Dokjabis, a new paradise can be created. In the distance, the upper half of the restored Reinheit grew on the perpetual motion again. There might be a fairly low volume for a while, but the restoration will soon be completed. Please don't cancel the contract. The despair and desperation inside of him was something that couldn't be shared. This was a world that sacrificed the incarnations to protect the incarnations. Reinheit was devoted to his beliefs, even if those beliefs made him a monster. The incarnations belatedly discovered the Dokjabis floating in the air and shouted, Dokjabi! Dokjabi! Has the scenario started? Why? Why do this? We didn't do anything wrong. The Dokjabis just laughed. Why, you did nothing wrong. This wasn't what we intended. Jung Hee-won bit her lips at the sight. She didn't want to see any more. Is there no way? Of course, there was a way. If he used giant body transformation and then transcendence, he would be able to press Reinheit with his strength. However, the consumption is too big. All of paradise will fly away. The regressor Yu Jung-hyuk didn't favor such inefficient fighting. If we want to kill him, we have to get rid of the roots of the perpetual motion. The core power source of the perpetual motion lay in the roots. If the roots were removed, he could overpower the perpetual motion. The problem was the monster in the roots. There was a monster that even Reinheit couldn't control. Even if I had the sixth-rate demon Sephiroths. If he had Sephiroth as a colleague, as he planned, then it would have been much easier to hit Paradise. However, Sephiroth was already dead when he went to pick up Sephiroths. There was a person hunting rankers as fast as me. The first one he thought of was Kim Dokja, but there was no guarantee that it was Kim Dokja. There were too many variables in this regression. We can't enter underground. What should we do? There's no need to enter. I've already entrusted it to someone. Jung Hee-won's eyes instantly widened. You, don't tell me. She noticed exactly who wasn't present right now. However, Yoo Jin-hyuk spoke before she could. Kim Dokja didn't leave all of you behind for no reason. Perhaps he was able to think of it because he was a regressor. He was always one-sidedly read by Kim Dokja, but this time he was about to read Kim Dokja's thoughts. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is smiling. Yoo Jin-hyuk sensed the gaze and his expression distorted. In the midst of the swarming monsters, Shin Yu-sung and Lee Gil-young lay curled up against each other. The concentration of monsters was so high that the children's small bodies couldn't be found. In a moment of crisis, they helpfully tamed some 8th grade monsters, the giant wasps. The wasps danced around Shin Yu-sung and Lee Gil-young, distracting the beast's eyes. However, there was a limit to the wasp's dance. The two children's eyes met. What should we do? I don't know. Beast Master Shin Yu-sung and the Insect Master Lee Gil-young. The two of them were currently the most powerful tamers in Seoul. However, even they couldn't tame all of these monsters. Their brains would explode and they would die. In fact, the limit they were capable of with taming was a 4th grade species. The 3rd grade species was also possible if they overdid it, but only for a moment. Am I going to die like this? The more powerful monsters trampled on the surrounding monsters, and the ecology of the whole area gradually calmed down. The devil wolves and dark splinters bared their fangs and sniffed around. The frightened wasps danced harder, but discovery was only a matter of time. There was also another threat despite the monsters. The branches of the perpetual motion moved through the monsters and rushed towards the children. Lee Gil-young embraced Shin Yu-sung, and it seemed like the branches were going to pierce the two children. At this moment, the branches stopped due to a powerful energy that was fired from somewhere. The branches seemed panicked and finally turned away from the children. Shin Yu-sung turned in the direction of the energy that stopped the branches. What is that? There was a monster who saw through the wasp's dance and was staring this way. At first, Shin Yu-sung didn't think it was a monster. It was too big to fathom as a living creature. Its body occupied exactly 1/3 of this cavern. Yellow eyes blinked in the darkness and all the hairs on Shin Yu-sung's body rose. This wasn't a monster. She couldn't think of it using this term. It was an existence that overwhelmed all monsters. All the noise in the area quieted down. Everything was bowing in awe before the monster. The being with such a ridiculous presence was looking this way with interesting eyes. Who are you? It seemed to be asking. Shin Yu-sung wasn't willing to answer the question. Looking back, Lee Gil-young was in a similar state to her. Shin Yu-sung raised her courage first. Hey! Lee Gil-young shook his head with fright. It's impossible! We can't do it! Those who raised diverse communication to the limit could understand each other's intentions without saying anything. In any case, we will die if this continues. Shin Yu-sung carefully got up and staggered towards the monster. The monsters around him were snarling wildly, but the child didn't care. At this moment, Shin Yu-sung realized her usefulness. This is why Ajashi left me here. Only she could do this. Damn! Lee Gil-young cursed and followed behind her. As soon as they approached, the presence of the huge monster became much stronger than before. Shin Yu-sung felt like her skin was being peeled off in front of this monster's gaze. The exclusive skill, Advanced Diverse Communication Level 5, has been activated. The transparent aura shot towards the monster in an instant. Diverse Communication. It was a skill made to understand different species. The moment that the aura touched the monster, Shin Yu-sung felt an overwhelming flood of emotions. The The terrible memories of the monster flowed into her head, an existence who fell to the bottom of the miserable paradise and grew up eating other monsters. Eat, despair, and scream. A monster who walked through a hell that couldn't be described using human language. The blood vessels couldn't cope with the excessive blood flow and burst. Blood flowed from Shin Yu-sung's nose and mouth. She shed tears of blood. Lee Gil-young tried to control Shin Yu-sung, but the situation was already getting out of control. In the end, Lee Gil-young also triggered diverse communication. The two children who had always been fighting joined hands at this moment. Lee Gil-young's power was added, and the channel of understanding widened. However, it was still an arduous opponent. Soon, blood poured from Lee Gil-young's nose. Whack! Shin Yu-sung understood the suffering of the strange beast and wanted to give up everything for the first time. There was the sound of a vessel being broken as Shin Yu-sung and Lee Gil-young's spirits collapsed little by little. It was the cost of trying to tame an ego they couldn't cope with, an opponent they couldn't touch. At this moment, Shin Yu-sung felt eyes on her back. It was as if someone was looking at her. A being that wasn't pushed at all by the monster's presence was looking at her. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is looking at you.